The story of Columbus himself definitely is a starting point of some type of contact with the Islamic world. In other words, our contact, our meaning the Muslim identity's contact with North America, is pretty much contemporaneous. It's pretty much related to Columbus's quote-unquote discovery of America. Of course, we don't call it a discovery anymore. He didn't discover anything. People were living here for thousands of years. He thought he discovered India, of course. So, Columbus shows you the status of India in the hearts of white men. But anyway, it's just a joke, just a joke. Columbus, not many people realize, and this is not a theory, this is a fact. Columbus and the discovery of America has a lot to do with our identity, with us. How? Well, Columbus was in Spain, as you all know. And Columbus was financed by Ferdinand and Isabella. And Ferdinand and Isabella, they were the ones who destroyed the final remnants, the last bastion of Islam in Spain, the Caliphate of Granada. Now, as you know, or maybe you should learn or study, the Islamic experience of Spain is something that's very unique. And we have a lot to learn from that. But to make a long story short, there were many caliphates simultaneously. And the last caliphate that remained was the Caliphate of Granada, the Nasirid Kingdom of Granada, stationed at Granada. Now, Columbus had gone to Ferdinand and Isabella many times, 2, 3, 4 times, following them in various cities, in Sevilla, in Cordoba. He's going around where they're going, and he's begging for money. Give me money to finance an expedition to India. And Ferdinand and Isabella kept on saying, we can't finance these fancy schemes of yours. Right now we're busy fighting the Moors, fighting these Muslims. We don't have money and we don't have political security to worry about these expeditions to India. Well, when did the Kingdom of Granada fall? Which year? 1492. Which happens to coincide with what year? The year that Columbus set forth and discovered America, quote-unquote discovered America. The very reason being that the two are directly linked. When Ferdinand and Isabella finally managed to expel the last Muslim caliph from Granada, Columbus was actually physically present there. And he witnessed the Muslim king or the Muslim Khalifa having to physically beg and plead and hand over the keys of the city in a symbolic gesture. He handed over the key of the city to Ferdinand and said, here is the key, it's all yours. And Columbus witnessed this. He was there physically. And when the treasures of the Nasirid kingdom were opened up, obviously they are full of gold and silver and basically multi-million-dollar acquisition by the newly formed kingdom of Ferdinand and Isabella. What are they going to do with all of this money? For the first time, they have the luxury of financing schemes here and there. And so, one of the things that they financed with the money taken from the Muslim Caliphate of Granada was the expedition of Columbus. And this is a historic fact. There's no there's no conspiracy theories. And this is well known that only after they conquered the kingdoms of Granada, the Nasirid Caliphate, were they able to finance Columbus. So Columbus had his money in hand. 2-3 months after the fall of Granada, he gets his money, and he goes and hires out voyagers, seafaring men to go and discover this new land of India, the new route, the new road to India. He wants to now rediscover India through a different path that nobody uses. So he goes to a number of sailors. Of them, names that some of you have studied back in middle school and high school, so I don't expect you to remember them. Martin Alonso Pinzo and Vicente Yanez Pinzo, the captains of the Pinta and the Nina. The Pinzo brothers, P-I-N-Z-O-N. Now you read in some articles they were actually secret Muslims. This is a bit of an exaggeration, to be honest. We have to be fair. We have to be honest when we talk about academics. There were no indications of them being closet Muslims, as the term is these days. There are no indications of them being Muslim. But what is for sure the case is that they were descendants of Muslims who had been forced into Christianity. They were descendants, in fact, they were related to the Moroccan Sultanate of Abu Zayyan, Pizon, Abu Zayyan. Their name actually the Pinzon, actually comes from Abu Zayyan. And they were from originally a Muslim family who had been forced to convert to Christianity a few generations ago. And of course, at the time, Muslims were the ones who were well familiar with seafaring techniques, with navigating ships. They were the ones who were the experts in the field. And so Columbus hired them. And he set forth from the westernmost tip of Spain. And he stationed himself there for a number of months, planning and thinking about what to do and who to hire. And the place that he lived at, in this westernmost region of Spain, it is a small little city called La Rabida. La Rabida. This city, La Rabida, and the place where Columbus stayed, in fact, it is a obviously Muslim city. Ar-Rabita. Ar-Rabita. And again, this is well known. It's not something, the name of the city and the place was Ar-Rabita. And the physical location where Columbus lived was a masjid that had been converted into a church. He lived in a church, a monastery, which originally had been a masjid. And from that location, he plotted and planned, months and months went by. And from there he then launched the voyage, the first of many voyages that were to discover, or quote unquote, discover the land that we now call America. So relying upon Muslim money, using Muslim navigational techniques. When I say Muslim navigational techniques, I mean techniques that were devised and developed by people who were well known for this art and trade in Spain. They were the Muslims. Living very literally in a masjid, literally an ex-masjid that had been converted to a church and a monastery. And that is where he then set forth to discover the very lands that we now live in. So there are links and contacts. Now, as we said, there are claims that some of the people on the ship were Muslim. Again, I have researched this, and we have to be careful as Muslims not to spout forth these theories that sound grandiose and turn out to be false. We have to be factual. We don't know of any Muslim, and it's highly doubtful, really and truly, it's highly doubtful that a Muslim was actually on the ships with Columbus, but it is very likely, in fact it is historically true, that many of the descendants of Muslims, because Muslims had been, just like Jews, just like other religions, they had been forced to convert to Catholicism centuries ago or generations ago, and a number of people, including the Pinzon brothers, a number of them were in fact from these converted families.